Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next 30 minutes. IMF data shows India's GDP doubles in a decade at a growth of 105%, outpacing major economies. Israel carries out multiple retaliatory airstrikes on Lebanon. Strikes endanger shaky truce between Israel and Hezbollah. Protests continue for a fourth night in Istanbul against detention of Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu for alleged corruption and terrorism. US President Donald Trump threatens lawyers and law firms with new DOJ crackdown on immigration lawsuits. Israeli artillery and airstrikes hit South Lebanon on Saturday after Israel said it had intercepted rockets fired from across the border. The incident has endangered a shaky truce that ended a year-long conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The conflict marked the deadliest spillover of the Gaza conflict and a blistering Israeli offensive after months of cross-border exchanges of fire wiped out Hezbollah's top commanders and much of its arsenal. Though Hezbollah denied responsibility for Saturday's strikes, saying it had no link to the rocket launches, that it remained committed to the ceasefire, 6 rockets were fired, 3 of which crossed into Israel and were intercepted. Under the November ceasefire deal, Hezbollah was to have no weapons in southern Lebanon, Israeli ground troops were to withdraw, and Lebanese army troops were to deploy into the area. The agreement specifies that Lebanon's government is responsible for dismantling all military infrastructure in southern Lebanon and confiscating all unauthorized arms. But since then, each side has accused the other of failing to implement the deal in full. Meanwhile, thousands of Israelis demonstrated in Tel Aviv on Saturday against the decision by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government to dismiss the head of Shin Bet Domestic Intelligence Service and resume fighting in Gaza. Netanyahu said this week he had lost confidence in Ronen Bar, who had led Shin Bet since 2021. He intended to fire him effective April 10th, prompting 3 days of protest. Israel's Supreme Court issued an injunction on Friday, temporarily freezing the dismissal. Netanyahu has dismissed accusations. The decision was politically motivated. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a video message said that Israel will remain a democratic state despite the government sacking the internal security chief.
Ronen Bar will not stay as head of Shin Bet. There will not be civil war, and Israel will remain a democratic state.
And U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said he's optimistic that Trump administration can broker a 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Witkoff, who is officially Trump's Middle East envoy, has played a growing role in efforts to bring about an end to the 3-year-old Ukraine conflict. The Kremlin said this week that Putin had agreed in a call with his U.S. counterpart Trump to observe a 30-day ceasefire on energy targets. During a conversation with talk show host Tucker Carlson, Witkoff said Russian President Putin had questions about how to handle a wide range of battlefield scenarios during a Tuesday telephone conversation with President Trump and U.S. officials.
So we're going to want the Russians to be satisfied in some respect. We're going to want the Ukrainians to be satisfied in some respect. We're talking to the Europeans. When I say satisfied, feeling that we came out of this thing, okay, with a deal that everybody can live with. I think that we have moved Russia in ways that no one thought was possible. So in the last conversation, they agreed to an energy infrastructure ceasefire, which means Russia is not going to target Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and Ukraine will not target Russia's energy infrastructure. They've never talked about that before. Here we are talking about that. They've never talked about reinstituting the Black Sea moratorium on maritime hits. Ukraine firing on Russian ships, Russia firing on Ukrainian ships.
President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday he had met top military commanders in the country's northeast to discuss the front line in Ukraine's war with Russia, and meetings with US officials due to get underway in Saudi Arabia on Sunday. Zelensky had said he discussed frontline sectors in Ukraine's east as well as in western Russia's Kursk region, where Ukrainian troops remain 7 months after a cross-border incursion. Ukrainian troops have for months been fending off Russian assaults around the city, where Moscow's forces have been slowly advancing to try to eventually capture the entire region. In other news, massive protests continue to sweep across Turkey, sparked by arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu on terrorism and corruption charges. Hundreds and thousands of people have gathered outside the city hall for 4 consecutive nights, defying a crackdown by riot police. The demonstrations have spread to over 55 provinces, marking the country's worst street protest in over a decade. İmamoğlu's detention came just days before his formal nomination as the main opposition CHP's presidential candidate. The Turkish leader has slid. The benchmark PIST 100 index plummeted nearly 8% on Friday. Despite the crackdown, the CHP vows to press ahead with its primary on Sunday, formally nominating İmamoğlu as its presidential candidate. The move is seen as a challenge to President Erdogan's ruling party. The international community is watching the developments closely amid concerns over Turkey's democratic backsliding and human rights record. In a significant win, the Sudanese army seized control of the main headquarters of the country's central bank a day after it seized full control of the presidential palace. Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan said they will continue their fight against the rapid support forces.
After a 2-year-long conflict, the tide seemed to have taken a turn in Sudan. The army made significant gains in the power struggle against the rapid support forces, seizing control of the central bank's main headquarters in Khartoum. The takeover came a day after the army seized full control of the presidential palace, marking a major gain since the fighting erupted in 2013. Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan vowed to continue the fight against the RSF until the end.
It is our pride in this blessed month of Ramadan that our forces advance in a steady march to continue the liberation of Sudan. Through you, we promise the Sudanese people that we will continue this battle. We are moving on. We will change course. We will not step back, nor we will retreat. We will continue until the end.
Making progress on Friday, the military has taken control of the whole southern region of the Blue Nile, which divides the capital from the northern section of Khartoum. Meanwhile, the RSF claimed to remain in the vicinity of the presidential palace. Sudan has a long history of political conflicts and crisis. In 1985, President Jafar Nimere seized power in a coup in 1969 and was hence ousted. In 1989, Omar al-Bashir, an army general, staged a coup and remained in power for 3 decades. In 1998, the US fired missiles at the El Shifa medicine factory in Khartoum, owned by bin Laden. In 2003, conflict in Sudan's western Darfur region pitted rebels against government forces backed by a militia known as Janjaweed. In 2005, Sudan's northern-based government and rebels in the south signed a peace deal after 2 decades of civil war. In 2019, Bashir was toppled after a popular uprising. In 2023, conflict between the army and a paramilitary group erupted on April 15th. In 2024, conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces began. This time, the army has recaptured the whole of Greater Khartoum. But will this bring an end to the ongoing political crisis in Africa's 3rd largest country is yet to be seen. Ayushi Bhatnagar's report for DD India.
US President Donald Trump threatened new actions against lawyers and law firms that bring immigration lawsuits and other cases against the government that he deems unethical. In a memorandum to US Attorney General Pam Bondi late on Friday, Trump said lawyers were helping to fuel rampant fraud and meritless claims in the immigration system and directed the Justice Department to seek sanctions against the attorneys for professional misconduct. The order also took aim at law firms that sue the administration in what Trump, a Republican, called baseless partisan lawsuits. He asked Monday to refer such firms to White House to be stripped of security clearances and for federal contracts they worked on to be terminated. While the Trump administration has been hit with more than 100 lawsuits challenging White House actions on immigration, transgender rights and other issues since the start of the president's second term, legal advocacy groups along with at least 12 major law firms have brought many of the cases in context. London's Heathrow Airport resumed full operations on Saturday and ordered a probe into how it dealt with it, a power outage that shut Europe's busiest air hub for almost a day as airlines warned of further delays and cancellations. British Airways, whose main hub is Heathrow, said it had operated around 90% of its schedule on Saturday and promised a near full schedule for Sunday after Chief Executive Sean Doyle on Friday warned huge impact would last days. The airport, the world's fifth busiest, had been due to handle some 1,351 flights on Friday, flying up to 291,000 passengers. Heathrow said it had tasked an independent board member, former Transport Minister Ruth Kelly, with undertaking a review of the airport's crisis management plan and its response to the incident, with the aim of boosting resilience. Tens and thousands of people in Paris and other French cities rallied against racism and the rise of far right. The rallies took place amid the rightward shift in French politics, with the government pledging to tighten immigration policies and border controls. Nearly 91,000 people took part in the protest across France, said the Interior Ministry, with Paris rally attracting 21,500 people. Many of those marching highlighted the growing strength of reactionary political forces in France, but also in the United States. In the French capital, thousands of people took to the streets. Pope Francis will be discharged from hospital on Sunday and will need 2 months of rest at the Vatican. One of the doctors treating him informed on Saturday. Francis was admitted to hospital on February 14th with a severe respiratory infection that required evolving treatment. The Vatican said earlier on Saturday that Francis also planned to make his first appearance in more than 5 weeks on Sunday, offering a blessing from the window of his room at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he has been battling double pneumonia. Pope Francis has not been able to do so since February 9th before going to hospital.
The good news, which I imagine the whole world is waiting for, is that tomorrow the Holy Father will be discharged. He will be discharged. Tomorrow the Holy Father will return to Santa Marta. Here is a little dutiful summary, as we have been asked, of what has happened in these 6 weeks or so.
And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Action against illegal online gaming entities in India. India observes Shahid Divas, honouring sacrifices of Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev. RCB beats defending champion KKR in the opening IPL match.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In the wake of floods in Botswana, India has sent the first tranche of assistance. The Ministry of External Affairs said the tranche comprised 10 tons of essential medicines, surgical supplies, water purifiers, among other items. Botswana authorities said at least 9 people were confirmed dead as rare flooding hit the semi-arid country. More than 5,000 people have been affected by the floods due to record rainfall. While the situation is improving with rain subsiding, more than 600 people remained at evacuation centres. The Directorate General of Goods and Services Tax Intelligence in India has intensified its enforcement actions against offshore online gaming entities. The action comes as part of a broader effort to tackle illegal and non-compliant operations in online money gaming sector. These entities, both domestic and foreign, are accused of evading goods and services tax obligations, leading to significant losses in tax revenue. DGGI has identified over 700 offshore entities involved in online gaming, betting, gambling that are bypassing tax regulations, failing to register and concealing taxable pay-ins. DGGI has warned the public to avoid engaging with offshore gaming platforms as it could jeopardize personal finances and indirectly support activities that undermine financial integrity and national security. India strengthens its naval capabilities with the launch of Tavasya, second frigate of project at Goa Shipyard Limited. India's Minister of State for Defence Sanjay Seth graced the occasion as the chief guest on Saturday. Tavasya is designed for multi-role warfare and features advanced indigenous systems like the BrahMos missile and sonar technology. With over 56% indigenous content, the stealth warship boosts India's self-reliance in defence manufacturing. With a displacement of over 3,800 tons, the frigate enhances India's maritime dominance. The launch is a strategic assertion of India's self-sufficiency, industrial capability and geopolitical foresight. Today, India observes Shahid Divas, honouring sacrifices of freedom fighters Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev. On March 23, 1931, these brave revolutionaries laid down their lives for India's freedom. The legacy, courage, commitment continues to inspire generations. Here's a special report from Sujata Lochab.
On 23rd March 1931, three patriots and freedom fighters, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev, were hanged to death. They were given the death sentence in the Lahore conspiracy case. The day is now remembered as Shahid Divas or Martyr's Day. The British Governor-General promulgated an ordinance to establish a special tribunal to try the Lahore conspiracy case while denying the accused the right to appeal. The British imperialists branded them as criminals, but in the hearts of millions, they were heroes. History is testament to the fact that the three young men showed neither remorse nor fear while they were being taken to the gallows at Lahore Central Jail, but happily embraced death, shouting, "Inqilab Zindabad." Inqilab Zindabad! In fact, the song, Mera Rang De Basanti Chola, gave birth to one of the greatest freedom songs. It became Bhagat Singh's song of the gallows. He was said to have marched to the hangman's chamber with this song on his lips. Today, Indians across the country honor them with a deep sense of gratitude. Their story of courage has inspired many movies which have relived the spirit of supreme sacrifice. Bhagat Singh was just 23 years old when he was hanged. His legend continues to inspire generations of Indians even today. For him, death in the cause of freedom was like a celebration that has continued even after 94 years. Sujata Lochab for DD India.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news today. The 23rd edition of Varuna, a bilateral naval exercise between India and France, concluded with a fleet review by aircraft carriers INS Vikrant and Charles de Gaulle off Goa's coast, spanning from March 19 to 22nd. It featured joint operations across subsurface, surface and air domains. The Corbett Tiger Reserve is conducting a bear census after 17 years to count sloth and Himalayan bears. The last survey in 2008 recorded 60 bears using camera traps and field surveys. The initiative aims to gather updated data for improved wildlife conservation measures ensuring better protection for the reserve's bear population. In a significant milestone, Rajasthan's Ramnivas Bagh Zoo witnessed its first successful captive ostrich breeding. Female ostrich Avantika laid 11 eggs, resulting in the hatching of a healthy chick. The achievement marks a new chapter for wildlife conservation efforts in the state, showcasing successful captive breeding of ostriches. In some business news, India has doubled its gross domestic product in the last 10 years at a growth of 105% from $2.1 trillion in 2015 to $4.3 trillion in 2025. According to the data released by the International Monetary Fund, India is now the fifth largest country in terms of GDP in world after the US, China, Germany and Japan. It added that India is set to outpace Japan soon, as the latter's GDP grew nil in the past decade. In comparison, the United States and China's GDP grew by 66% and 44% respectively during the same period. Australia's government said on Sunday that a federal budget this week would include a $1.8 billion Australian dollar extension to a scheme to reduce energy bills. This is ahead of what is expected to be a closely fought general election due by May. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's centre-left Labour government has already handed out $3.5 billion Australian dollars in an energy bill relief in a bid to tackle inflation as it grapples with rising living costs in the nation of around 27 million. On Sunday, ahead of handing down on Tuesday's final budget before the elections, Albanese said Australian households and around 1 million small businesses would get another $150 Australian dollars in rebates automatically applied to their electricity bills in quarterly installments. In sports, Phil Salt's extraordinary assault and Virat Kohli's star power helped Royal Challengers Bengaluru outshine defending champion Kolkata Knight Riders by 7 wickets in the Indian Premier League IPL 18th season opener at the Eden Gardens on Saturday. Chasing 174, Kohli and Salt unleashed firepower to plunder 80 runs in the power play on a batting-friendly track to make the chase a cakewalk. Earlier, Quinton de Kock was caught behind off Josh Hazlewood before making an impact in KKR colours. Krunal Pandey also starred with the ball, taking 3 wickets. For KKR, captain Ajinkya Rahane's half-century was the only positive outcome. Armand Duplantis won the men's pole vault at the World Indoor Athletics Championship 2025 in Nanjing on Saturday. The Swedish star, also known as Mondo, successfully defended his title with a jump of 6.15 meters and wins the tournament for the 3rd time. This was Mondo's 7th global title, but was made to work all the way by Corrales, who took silver with a new personal best of 6.05 meters. American Sam Kendricks rounded off the podium with a best of 5.90 meters. 25-year-old also cleared the 6-meter barrier for the 100th time to become the first athlete to do so. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.